November 20th, St. Felix of Valois. St. Felix was the son of the Count of Valois. His mother carried him to St. Bernard at his monastery in Clairvaux, to offer him there to God when he was 3 years old. She kept him, however, under her own care, and took particular care of him, permitting him, still young, to distribute the alms she was pleased to give the poor. When the exiled Pope Innocent II sought refuge in France, his father Felix offered his castle to the pontiff, who often blessed the young man, who he saw being trained in virtue. One day, when Felix gave away his own habits to a poor beggar, he found them that evening neatly laid on his bed, and he thanked God for this sign of divine goodness, proving that one loses nothing when one gives to the poor. When he was 10 years old, he obtained grace for a prisoner condemned to death by means of his prayer and his pleadings with his uncle, a lord of whom the man was the subject. Felix had a presentiment that this man would become a saint, and in fact, he retired into a deep solitude, where he undertook severe penance and died the death of the just. The unfortunate divorce of the parents of Felix, and the excommunication of his father, who had remarried, and whose condemnation raised serious troubles on his domains, caused to mature in the young man a longed-for resolution to leave the world. Confiding his mother to her pious brother Thibault, Count of Champagne, Felix took the Cistercian habit at Clairvaux. His rare virtues drew on him an admiration such that, with St. Bernard's consent, he fled from it to Italy, where he began to live an austere life with an aged hermit in the Alps. For this purpose he had departed secretly, and the servants his uncle sent believed him dead. Being unable to trace him, they published the rumor of his death. About this time the old hermit procured the ordination of his disciple as a priest. After his elderly counselor died in his arms, St. Felix returned to France. He built a cell in an uninhabited forest. This place was later named Safwa. Amid savage beasts, he led an angelic life of perpetual fasting. Here God inspired him with the desire of founding an order for the redemption of Christian captives. The Lord also moved St. John of Matha, a young nobleman of Provence, to seek out the hermit and join him. The two applied themselves to the practice of all virtues. It was John who overtly proposed to St. Felix the project of an order for the redemption of Catholics. The latter gladly offered himself to God for that purpose, and after praying for 3 days, the two made a pilgrimage to Rome in the middle of the winter. They were kindly received by the Pope, and after he read the recommendation which the Bishop of Paris had given them, he too prayed and became convinced that the two saints were inspired by the Holy Ghost, and he gave his approbation to the Trinitarian order, also known as the Order of the Holy Trinity. Within 40 years the order would have 600 monasteries. St. John, who was superior general, left to St. Felix the direction of the convents in France. There St. Felix died in November of the year 1212, at the age of 85, only about 6 weeks before his younger co-founder. It is a constant tradition in the Trinitarian order that St. Felix and St. John were canonized by Urban IV in the year 1260, though no bull has ever been found.